Hey, welcome back to the channel. Alright, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to the channel. I don't know why I'm laughing. My name is Nick. This is Watchlist Roulette. If you are new here, the channel and this project I'm doing is dedicated to shuffling my watch list on Letterboxd with Watchlist Picker, picking films out of a hat. Whatever I get is whatever I get. At the end of every episode, I pick the films for the next episode. So last week, I drew 4 films out of a hat. Well, I drew 5, but I'm going to talk about one that I'm going to explain why we got to do it the next time. I drew 4 films out of a hat. It was Roger&Me, the Michael Moore documentary, American Gigolo, not to be confused with Deuce Bigalow, European Gigolo, or the sequel to it, which I've heard is a great, builds on the great lore of the first one. In the Heat of the Night by Norman Jewison. And we also got High Plains Drifter, directed by Clint Eastwood and also starring Clint. My Letterboxd watch list, which is always growing, is somewhere around 11 or 1,200 films. And it'll continue to keep growing because all I do is I add anything that's remotely interesting. Anything. If there is an element of it, or there's somebody in it I like, ooh, and then you just add it, and then it grows to an insurmountable number. And that's fine. It's not a job to complete it the way some people treat it. But it's a great library to pick things from and explore the corners of cinema which you haven't gone to yet. Or I haven't gone to. There's a great variety on that watch list. Every genre you can think of. Different filmmakers, documentaries, films that are probably in the Letterboxd top 250, IMDb top 250, which I haven't hit. Art house classics. It's a huge variety, and I'll never run out. So instead of just sitting there and looking at it and not knowing what to pick to watch, I said, fuck it, I'm going to do everything by random, and then I'm going to come back here in these videos and discuss them and just shoot the shit talking movies. And if you're into that, like I am, then strap in, because we got a fucking good one this week, I think. I would say it was solid. I would say it was a solid episode. A solid collection of films, I would say. Any that I love to the moon and back, I don't know about that, but probably 1 or 2 really good ones, and that's all you can ask for, man, when you're picking shit at random. So we'll start with documentary Superboy, Michael Moore, Roger&Me. Roger&Me, a film about closing of a GM plant in Flint, Michigan. Flint, Michigan is where Michael Moore grew up. It is his hometown, which creates this great personal tie. It's not just a documentary and walking into somebody else's environment and scoping it out and seeing what happened. This is a guy who grew up with it. And you see parts of that childhood upbringing come into it. One of my favorite documentaries is My Winnipeg by Guy Madden. Is that similar at all? Fuck no. But there's an element of, well, not an element, the whole thing about My Winnipeg is that it's somebody creating a documentary hearkening back to their childhood and their life and the town that they grew up in. And they make it this very introspective, intimate experience because they're showing you parts of their home that you wouldn't know about unless you were from there. And that's something that Michael Moore does in this documentary, which I didn't know about going in. And it really helped me understand, well, this is why a guy might be driven to make a film like this. So there's a GM plant in Flint, Michigan. Michigan obviously was the automotive capital of the United States, at least at the time when it was booming there. And there would be plants that made cars American made. And, you know, it was just like the Rust Belt of car manufacturers. And so GM was a gigantic employer in Flint. Good old Flint Firebirds. That's all I know about Flint, the hockey team. And it employed 30,000 people, maybe more. And it went belly up. Well, it didn't go belly up. That's not exactly what happened. But what did happen is that the plants closed down and thousands of people lost their jobs. And when you live in a town where that's pretty much all there is to do and everything in the town kind of flows through the car manufacturers, when that shuts down, there's not much left. There's just not much left. And Michael Moore's whole goal here is to investigate why. Why does something like this happen? How does something like this happen? is GM hurting financially that the president, Roger Moore... Wait, is his last name Moore? Roger Smith. Roger Moore's fucking James Bond. Alright. As you can imagine, Michael Moore goes to his... He does what he does best. He goes investigating and just tries to figure out what happened, because now his hometown of Flint, Michigan is like, economy-wise, is like fucking ground zero. So I really liked it. That's the thing with Michael Moore documentaries. I'm always entertained by Michael Moore's documentaries, and I know that he's a bit of a complicated character, and some people like him, some people don't. I haven't done all of my research on him as a human being, but I always enjoy his documentaries. They're always super entertaining for the subject matter. Often feels very much like if somebody dumbed down, you know, serious issue, not dumbed down, but simplified serious issues into a way that a Hollywood movie-going audience can understand. And they're entertaining, and I think that every film that he makes, I haven't seen some of his later ones, like there's ones like 11-9, Where to Invade Next, I think is another one, but I've seen Bowling for Columbine. Now I've seen Roger&Me, thanks to the algorithm. I've seen parts of Fahrenheit 9/11, not all of it. I've seen parts of Sicko, not all of it. All his films feature subject matter which make me angry, but they're always entertaining, and I always feel like his heart is in the right place when he's making these films. He always has, to me, what I think is probably the right mindset and the right goal, is to shed light on injustices in the United States and how it happens, and trying to get the answers from the people up top, and usually the people up top never respond. This half of Michael Moore's documentaries and half of Roger&Me is him running around hotel lobbies, conference centers, business office buildings, giant skyscrapers, trying to get to the top floor on the elevator, and people kicking him out. Like half of Roger&Me is him just getting kicked out of places, and his other films are like that too. He's just trying to get answers from people who just do not want to talk to him, guerrilla style, running in with a microphone, no appointments, no anything, and trying to get a seat at the table. And at the time, he was a small-time independent filmmaker, so it makes sense that he would have to do it this way. But it's just, I don't know why, it's just funny. I would have loved to see him in real time getting thrown out of places trying to get to the president's floor of the fucking building. And a big thing with Roger&Me is that what ends up happening is that this GM plant that had 30,000 people working there, essentially it's alluded to that Roger Smith and the company of GM closed this plant and then moved operations, I believe it was south of the border. And obviously they're gonna cash in on cheaper labor, and so that was kind of the beginning of shifting away from American made and finding ways to make cars for as little as possible, paying people as little as possible, and maximizing a profit margin. I don't know how GM's doing now, but I fucking think they're done. But yeah, they definitely are. They don't make those station wagons anymore. What the fuck? And Moore knows this, and he goes on the hunt trying to figure out, well, you know, how could you do that? And putting thousands of people out of jobs, and there's scenes in the film where a news camera is showing up to show them building the last car at the plant, and a whole bunch of people are clapping like it's the last day of school. Like, we don't have to work anymore. And one guy's like, the fuck are you all clapping for? We all just lost our jobs. And this film definitely highlights, it puts a highlight on the tone deafness between people of the upper class, ruling class, who exploit labor, and the working class who has to play the game and work paycheck to paycheck to earn a living and support them and their family. There's a giant gap of social tone deafness. And one of the interviews that Michael Moore has with a random bystander outside one of the plants, I think at one point, the guy said a very simple line. Just says, some people know what time it is and some people don't. And that could sum up the tone deafness in the situation. Michael Moore is juxtaposing. He's trying to hunt down the CEO, Roger Smith, to get answers on the disaster at GM. He's hunting him down at a fancy schmancy skyscraper. He's going to a country club that he frequents where people go game hunting and bring dead animals back to cook and serve dinner at the country clubs, swanky, high-class places, and none of them are given the answers that he wants. And he's juxtaposing that with a deputy sheriff who is evicting people in the city of Flint, Michigan. Obviously a lot of people who have fallen on hard times, and he's going back and forth, flip-flopping, showing you the tone deafness of this upper class that is ruining the lives of working class people in Flint. The struggle that people going homeless in Flint are dealing with. And so it's a very obvious juxtaposition that Michael Moore is working with, but it does work, and it's sad. It's effective. It's an obvious way of going about the narrative, but it works, right? And one of the things that Moore is always really good with is highlighting the funny, uncanny parts of tragedy. You know, he's going to the Flint, Michigan parade, he's interviewing Miss America and about the whole ordeal or just trying to avoid it. He's showing the opening of a fancy hotel, which they're sure is going to draw tourists to Flint. That's not going to work. It's a ridiculous concept that you build a Hilton or whatever it was, and then people are going to come flocking. There's a lot, the Auto World thing. They built an Auto World type indoor theme park, which is not really a theme park. Revolved around cars. It got shut down. Nobody went to it. Flint continues to be a ghost town, and everybody's avoiding the elephant in the room as to what went wrong. And so he's always been good at highlighting the funny, just kind of odd, dumb, hypocritical parts of injustices in the U.S. And you want to talk about crazy on-the-nose juxtapositions like the upper-class yacht club life and the sheriff evicting people. We could just go to that Beach Boys, wouldn't it be nice segue, where they're rolling through, I don't know why I'm laughing. Fuck it. But they're rolling through streets of Flint, Michigan, and they met with somebody who said that right after he got laid off from GM, or he got laid off from somewhere in Flint, and when he was leaving on his last day, Wouldn't It Be Nice by the Beach Boys came on the radio on his car, and he was trying not to cry. So they did the whole juxtaposition of happy and sad and obvious on the nose, like the last one I talked about. And Wouldn't It Be Nice by the Beach Boys is playing as they're going down the street in Flint, Michigan, looking at all these foreclosed, overgrown homes that are totally in shambles. Michael Moore finding a funny way to present something that is pretty tragic, and just the oddity of it all. And through this film, it investigates the trickle-down effect of when an area goes to shit economy-wise. He starts to interview people who are taking up different jobs, weird jobs, people who are skinning rabbits, fucking people who are finding any way they can to make ends meet, people who went to go work at McDonald's or Taco Bell, who quit because it was harder than working on a factory line building cars. Homelessness, obviously, rampant. Crime, which only goes up because of this. Record homicides and violent crimes are popping up in Flint. And so it's just this trickle effect of things getting worse on all fronts. And the biggest employer in the city refusing to acknowledge any of it. There's one scene in Roger&Me, and again, I'm not a squeamish guy, or I don't have a problem with blood or gore in films and this and that. He interviews this He interviews this lady. Is off the wagon the right term? She's a little cuckoo, a little bit of a cuckoo clock, that one. This woman, I'm gonna put the picture in. She breeds rabbits. She's like, there's nothing to do, there's no work in Flint. I'm gonna breed rabbits, and I'm gonna skin them and kill them and sell them. Some of them she sells as pets, some of them she sells as meat. There's a scene in this film where to get to the point, she beats the shit out of a rabbit. And Michael Moore's camera crew shows all of it. And it's not often that I have to look at a film like this through the closed hands, but that did it. Apparently there was an excerpt somewhere in an interview where somebody asked him about that scene and how graphic it was. And he mentioned that, and I'm only paraphrasing, I read this somewhere that he mentioned this. Everybody brings that scene up with the rabbit getting beat and skinned and gutted. Like, just show everything. This woman just fucking going to town on this rabbit. Like a minute later, they show footage of cops surrounding a black man with a rifle in the middle of the street and shooting him and presumably killing him, I believe. And Michael Moore just said, everybody talks to me about the rabbit beating, killing scene. Almost nobody asks me about the killing of a human person afterward. And I think it was a really interesting thing for him to say, how desensitized we are to violence among human versus human and tragedies against humans. It kind of holds the mirror up to the fact that these rich fuckers who are responsible for laying off so many people and destroying a town, they don't care about a tragedy unfolding in front of them. And when we watch a man go down like that, we got to ask ourselves why we wouldn't react to something that is often quite sad. So he does some interesting things with the documentary. It's funny, it's entertaining, a lot of obvious on the nose kind of commentary and just the way he operates, and that's nothing new to me. That's the way his films are. They're quite heavy-handed, but they're entertaining, and you seem to learn a lot about something that maybe you didn't know about before. And I wasn't all that educated on Flint, Michigan and the falling out there, so yeah, I'm glad I watched it. Mikey Moore, it was worth the watch. I'm glad I did it. So on to the next one. Next film I'm going to talk about is American Gigolo by Paul Schrader from 1980. This is a film where Richard Gere plays a male escort who is framed for murder. Plain and simple. One of his clients that he has, who he's hired to go to this woman's apartment, and he's hired by the husband of the woman. And the husband is awfully rough, and I don't know, he has some kink on watching his wife just get fucking railed, and he's awfully aggressive with her. And then like a day or two later they find out she's murdered. He gets kind of set up in this frame, isolated and weird, like a lot of Paul Schrader's protagonists are. I gotta say though, maybe one of the less weird ones from him in terms of the protagonist. I think Richard Gere and his character, not the most incel-esque compared to some Schrader characters. And he's framed for murder, and the paranoia is growing, and panic is growing around how he's going to prove that he's innocent. So it's a setup job. He also falls in love with one of his clients, and she is married to a politician, and that gets messy. But there's a lot of qualities of this film that is in line with what I'm used to from Paul Schrader, but at the same time, some things that felt new to me from him. The first thing I'm going to mention is one of the best fucking opening scene needle drops I've seen in a fucking long time. So I'm going to show you my cat, Deb. This is Debbie Harry. And obviously she's named after Debbie Harry from Blondie. And Blondie is the opening soundtrack to this film as Call Me comes blaring through the fucking speakers. And it's Richard Gere's character just like gunning it down, probably Pacific Coast Highway in a convertible. And that song coming on, and I was just like right off the fucking bat, I felt like Millhouse, like the Thrill House, where his fucking hair is blowing back in the chair while he's turning on Bone Storm. So right off the bat, I'm just like, this is gonna be the fucking greatest film ever. This is gonna become my favorite Paul Schrader film. This is gonna become a favorite of mine. I wouldn't say it kept it at that level, but that was a hell of an opening. And Call Me is often reintroduced into the score in an interesting kind of 80s synth way, instrumentally, and it was really cool. Honestly, that part of it was really fucking cool. And so again, Richard Gere is playing this callboy. Honestly, I don't know how many films I've seen with a young Richard Gere, but if we remade this film today, Ryan Gosling would sub in as a perfect protagonist of this film. I don't know, like they talk the same. Gosling's good at playing those literally me type characters, and would fall right in line. He would be perfect if we had to remake this film today. That's pretty much the energy and personality that Richard Gere exudes in this film, at least to me. And his character is a rebel who's turned off by conformity and by the mundanity of everyday life and everyday things, and I think that's why he's an escort, because it's a life and a work style that works for him and he finds interesting. But this also fucks him up because it destroys his ability to have human connection. As he's forming a relationship with this politician's wife, that's becoming unfulfilling because sex means nothing to him anymore. It's just work. There's no pleasure in that at all anymore, and he's just kind of like a numb, like devoid of emotion or human sensation. Again, Gosling to a T. If he could totally fucking do it. And so there's a big issue with his character, is that his ability to have human connections is a big thing that kind of messes with him. And I really don't know what else to say about this film. It's a film about somebody just getting set up. That's really all there is. There's a great 80s softcore porn vibe to it. Not a whole lot of graphic log jamming in this film, but enough that looks like it was from like an 80s porn VHS, to be honest. As more of the inverted, isolated Schrader protagonists are, they're often quite stiff. A lot of the characters in this film kind of feel that way. There's a weird thing with the dialogue that I thought it sounded very low down, to the point where it was hard to make out what people are saying, and just the way the characters interact was a bit stiff, but that's just the way he is with some of his characters. I think this might be like the first Paul Schrader film that I've seen where a character doesn't write in a fucking diary. I'm pretty sure he doesn't write in a diary, if I remember correctly. But we go to the likes of Taxi Driver and First Reformed, Light Sleeper with Willem Dafoe. I think even Card Counter. Like, there are two things that are incredibly reoccurring in Paul Schrader's film. One, an isolated, weird, lonely protagonist writes every day in a journal, which there's nothing wrong with, but it's just odd that he keeps on doing it. Like, he just keeps on doing it. And the other thing, which this is a spoiler for the end of the film, if you haven't seen it, look away or skip forward, or maybe because it's from 1980, it's your own fault that you haven't seen it. But he has this thing with people meeting at a prison meeting place and putting their hands together through the glass. This is not the only film I've seen him do this. I've seen him do it in a couple of films. I think even when he criticized Killers of the Flower Moon, I think he said that's how he would have ended Killers of the Flower Moon. He just has this thing for that. I don't know. I often see so many things reoccurring in his films, and the journal and the hands on the glass in the prison, those are so many things that he does all the fucking time. And when it happened by the end of the film, I laughed my ass off because I saw it coming from a mile away, and boy was I right. Paul has his fixations, man, and he's a hell of a Facebook poster. Holy shit. You know what? I don't care if he runs his mouth. He probably has a right to. He's done some great shit. And so this detective's following him, studying his every move. Richard Gere's character is trying to develop an alibi with a guy he works with. That's not coming through. And so everywhere along the way, wrong information is being deciphered incorrectly and ruining his life. And he's just trying to find a way by the end of the film to get out of that spiral and not fucking go to jail for homicide. And it becomes tricky. So it's, again, fun watch. Stylistically, good 80s mood piece. Synth, softcore, cheesy but fun. Yeah, I didn't mind it. I thought it was solid. I would probably watch it again at some point. I always get something from Schrader's films. Like, it's always a character I like, or it's the atmosphere that he builds, his writing style. There's always something I like and that I take away from his films. Some of his films I love, some of them I like, but I've never disliked one. I know there are a lot of ones, later on in his career that are not so popular, but everything I've seen from him, I always at least take away something. So I thought American Gigolo was solid. And next up we have In the Heat of the Night. The classic, they call me Mr. Tibbs. I'm not going to try to recite it. I'm going to throw the clip in there, but everybody knows it, I would hope.
They call me Mr. Tibbs. Mr. Tibbs!
Sidney Poitier plays a character who is going to visit his mother, coming from Philly. He's a detective, one of the best homicide detectives in the country, apparently, as we find out. He gets off the train in this southern town, and he happens to show up. Anyway, he stops off in this town in the south. It's very racist, and he shows up he makes perfect timing because there's been a homicide in this town. The chief, played by Rod Steiger, his deputy, played by Warren Oates, and a couple other policemen in the force are trying to figure out what happened. Obviously, they're going to the easiest answer as possible. Well, first off, Sidney Poitier's character gets accused of the murder. He gets picked up at the train station and is accused, obviously because of the color of his skin. And then we all figure out, no, not only did he not do it, he's a cop. And he seems to have, the doubt has been removed now for Rod Steiger's chief. Not only that, he calls his chief in Philadelphia, Sidney Poitier's Virgil Tibbs, calls his chief in Philadelphia as like an alibi, as a, I'm telling the truth, I am a cop. And the two chiefs talk to each other, and it's, oh, he's the best homicide detective there is. Not only did he not do it, we want him to help you with the case to figure out who fucking did. And so, much to Virgil Tibbs' chagrin, he's going to be involved in the case. And, but he gets into it, and he becomes driven to figure out who the killer is. I think when you're working around a bunch of incompetent slobs who are policemen, Rod Steiger and Warren Oates, and these characters are often seen as ill-fitting for the job. They rush to the easiest explanations. They don't really do their due diligence in investigating every angle of how this homicide could have went down, how the person was killed, when, where, who the suspects might be. They seem to be going to the easiest, most comfortable answers possible, and it would be lazy, and it would be an injustice to, convict the wrong person for the crime. And Virgil Tibbs is the saving grace who's just like making sure that the wrong moves aren't made here, and that, there's not a miscarriage of justice. The wrong person doesn't get arrested. The family of the victim has done justice, who, by the way, are bringing this giant factory to town that's going to bring in a lot of jobs, which Rod Steiger's character persuades Virgil. A lot of, he quotes, your people are going to be employed at that factory. So he tries to sucker him in a really shitty way to get him to have a rooting interest in finding out who did it. Because the wife of the husband, who is the murder victim, is saying they're going to pull out their business from the town, which would be awfully bad for their economy. And so it's a big deal to figure out who the right person is who did it. Mr. Tibbs is on the job. That's all I can tell you from here. First things first, 2 banger performances. I mean, you can't really... I feel like there's not much more to say about Sidney Poitier in this film. He's got this confident, assertive, like larger-than-life screen presence. The guy's a total fucking movie star. He just has that thing about him. Even when he doesn't have a lot of lines of dialogue, just the camera is like a magnet to his face. Like you are dialed in and totally on the edge of every word. And Rod Steiger goes toe-to-toe with him. A totally different character. An arrogant slob. Narrow-minded. Loner. And just, like, it's kind of a dickhead. And he goes toe-to-toe. They go toe-to-toe performance-wise very well. I think Steiger won an Oscar for this film. Probably deserved. I don't know who the other nominees were that year, but it's a hell of a performance, and Sidney Poitier in this film is iconic. I don't have to add more to it. It's been said already, but the both of them are fucking amazing. At first in this film, the racism isn't always spelled out using offensive words or going over the top with heavy-handed racism. In the beginning, it starts with, a refusal to shake hands. When Tibbs goes to console the wife of her dead husband, she kind of inches away from his hands on her shoulder. That type of shying away and trying to stay away from somebody who's not of the same skin color. But as the film progresses, we see a lot more outwardly racist characters, people who are threatening violence against him, people using racial slurs, kicking him out of establishments. And so the racism grows throughout the film. And everybody has these prejudices against Tibbs in this town because there are pretty much no black people in that town. And in the film, even his perception of white people almost gets in the way of him solving the case. He finds a suspect who seems like a prime suspect who would fit perfectly. And it's somebody who has a field full of cotton pickers who are African American, and he points to him as the number one suspect, and through his lens he's wrong about that because his misperceptions almost sidetrack the investigation. So he finds out that even he has his prejudices and they get in the way. Sure, they're reasonable prejudices to hold based on history and slave owners, but even the way he sees life through his lens gets in the way of trying to figure out a murder. And again, this all is a big part of how sharp the writing is and just how tight and airproof it is. It is a case that's investigated from all angles. They show how racial bias is getting in the way of the white officers. They show Tibbs' bias getting in the way of him being able to do his job, and the whole thing becomes uber complicated. But I thought it was incredibly well acted, well written. It's an American classic. I think it won Best Picture. Makes a lot of sense. It's definitely one that I would add to my collection. I had a great time with it, to see this chemistry, this challenge between Poitier and Steiger, and its comments on race relations in the South and the US at the time. On top of it, a pretty compelling whodunit, even if it's not totally my genre. When it's done right, and it was here. I thought it was great. I'd be happy to go back to it again, man. And I'm glad I finally got to it. A big one, a big American classic knocked off the list in the heat of the night by our boy Norman Jewison. I think he also did, I was gonna say Moonlight. And then I was gonna say Moonshine. That's not a film, that's a drink. Moonstruck. Nick Cage, I lost my hand. Great scene.
I lost my hand! I lost my bride!
We're getting off topic here. High Plains Drifter, 1973, Western, directed by Clint Eastwood, starring Clint Eastwood obviously as this stranger character, this all-assuming Western identity he had. When I picked this, upon picking it, I said, he's going to this town and he's going to defend the townspeople from a bunch of bandits that are coming in. Sounds like a poor man's Seven Samurai Western. I was dead wrong. I was fucking wrong. Not only was I wrong, this is not the traditional Western where Clint Eastwood's character may be painted as a hero. This is an anti-Western. When I first saw Unforgiven, which is incredible, I love Unforgiven. Unforgiven's fucking incredible. When I first saw Unforgiven, I would look at that as an anti-Western, but I looked at Unforgiven as an anti-Western because it was a lifelong Western film star creating a film that deconstructed the tropes and cliches of Western films. That is not what I would call High Plains Drifter. High Plains Drifter is an anti-Western because it is centered on a radically unlikable anti-hero. This is not Clint Saves the Day. This is a character who rolls into town and he's staring people down, giving, he goes into the tavern, he just wants a drink. A bunch of guys start fucking with him. And right off the bat, you're thinking, classic Clint, classic Western Clint. Yeah, he's gonna do his thing. And he does. He kills like 3 guys. Again, just talking to him the wrong way. And then after that, he finds a woman who's not happy about it. He grabs her, brings her in a barn, and rapes her. No point is this a character with any remorse. Like, what have I done? Right away, in the first 15 minutes of the film, you are sent the message from Clint Eastwood that this is not a hero. This is not somebody to root for. This is a depraved human being. And this is not a hero story. This is a total villain who is tasked with trying to be a hero, being paid to be a hero. They hire him to take care of these thieves, these thugs that are coming back to town. They're getting out of jail any day. And they all know that they're coming back to the town to start some shit. And they hire him to take care of it. And what happens is he politically and power-wise decides to give himself kind of carte blanche over everything. He moves into the town's hotel, kicks everybody out. Everything in the town is free. He doesn't have to pay for shit. He appoints his own mayor. He pretty much just gets his pick on everything. He says, if I'm going to do this, you pay me well, and I'm going to get whatever I want. And what happens is that he's taking advantage of the people in this town, and he's doing it out of revenge. Through the film, you're seeing flashbacks that his character, maybe from this lifetime, maybe from a past lifetime, was once a marshal there who was brutally killed by whip, and all the townspeople stood by and did nothing. And he is getting revenge on them for this by taking advantage of them and screwing up everything in the town. In this film, you've got Clint Eastwood's character, piece of shit. The thugs that are coming to town, pieces of shit. The people in the town who are bystanders who once maybe saw him maybe get fucking killed, pieces of shit. Who else is a piece of shit? There's maybe like one redeeming character in this film, and it's the little fella, Mordecai, who he appoints to be the mayor. He might be the one character where you're like, okay, not a total slickback piece of shit, but like semi-forgivable and kind of cute. I thought he was Mickey Rooney when I first started watching. I'm like, oh, Mickey's in it, Jiminy Jillikers, but no, it's just another guy. And so, because everybody in this film is a piece of shit, Clint is getting revenge on everybody, not just people who are coming into town to cause no good. He's pulling out all the stops to give everybody their just desserts, whether it be violent or not. And he makes a lot of enemies in this film, and at no point is his character likable. He is a total piece of shit, and it's an anti-Western because of that. We are watching a despicable character fight other despicable characters. There are no winners, there are no losers, only pieces of shit in High Plains Drifter. Because I got this in the roulette, I actually found a cheap copy of the Blu-ray. I don't know when this was made. The transfer on it looks really good. Like, really, really nice transfer. Super clean, super bright. It looked really good for a standard 1080 Blu-ray transfer. I think it was created from a 4K restoration, and it looks like it. It looks really good. So if you're interested in getting it, check that one out. There's some really seriously funny there's some funny shit in this film, some funny kills from weird angles. I can't really explain it. There's a scene where somebody rolls into a campsite and like point of view, POV is like fucking picking guys off, and it looks ridiculous, but it's so funny the way it's shot. And again, it's a really grimy, really greasy, violent Western, and just really gritty, and not likable, pretty bleak. A lot of violence, a lot of rape, revenge, pulpy, gritty, sandpaper, like elbow sandpaper, gritty, pulpy, sick, depraved Western. Really, I thought it was just going to be your run-of-the-mill Clint Eastwood Western, but it was a lot more interesting than that, and I'm glad it was. It surprised the shit out of me. I really didn't realize it was going to be rooted in such a dark, cynical place, but it is. It is shit characters getting revenge on shit characters, and nothing hopeful and nothing happy about it. So yeah, there's a concept, or at least an interpretation, that Clint Eastwood's character is a ghost, getting revenge for who he was in a past life, which would have been the marshal in the town center, getting whipped by these thugs who he's now out to kill. I think that's a pretty good analysis. Yeah, it could just be a wicked anti-hero, anti-Western ghost story. High Plains Drifter, not what I expected, got a hell of a lot more than I bargained for. So probably two great films and two pretty solid films, but hopefully we can get some pretty good discussions next time. But now, let's do the picks for the next episode. So when I did last episode, I picked 5 films. 4 of them, which we've already talked about, and then there's one left over, which is Jodorowsky's Dune, a documentary on what Alejandro Jodorowsky would have did if he got his hands on a Dune adaptation. I've never seen one of his films, but I'm sure it would be fucked up. So the reason I'm talking about it is that I'm going to include it in the next episode. I said I was going to do it. I didn't do it this episode, but I'm a man of my word. I am going to do it. And the reason I'm holding it back is because, number one, 5 films in one shot was too much for one video. The video would have been fucking an hour and a half, and I don't know if any of us are going to deal with that. And number 2, I talked about how I've never seen a film by Alejandro Jodorowsky. I figured I'd be able to appreciate it on some level, even with that being the case, but like it just didn't feel right. I just felt like, okay, maybe I need to introduce myself to his films, so I've got some sort of frame of reference, you know? It's like the Big Lebowski, when Donnie keeps trying to interfere in the conversation, and Walter's just telling him, you know, you're out of your element. You're out of your element. You don't know what's going on here. You're like a child who wanders into the middle of a movie. Shut the fuck up. So hopefully we don't pull a Donnie today. And so I decided for the next episode, I'm going to do Jodorowsky's Dune, but I'm going to do it in tandem with a Jodorowsky film and introduce myself to his films. I think it's a good way of doing it. I Googled, where do you start with Alejandro Jodorowsky? Because I feel like he's the type of filmmaker where a bad entry point might fuck you up. I wanted to make sure it was the right one. And often the response from a lot of people on the World Wide Web was that El Topo is a really good place to start. Saw some people refer to it as the gateway drug. And then I saw others say, no, the Holy Mountain is where you want to go. It gives you an idea of everything he does and what he represents and his style, and everything about him is in that film. And if there's one to sink or swim with, it's the Holy Mountain. So now I'm here and I can't pick. I could easily go the El Topo route because I know it's at least somewhat of a Western, and that would more cater to what, I'm a sucker for Westerns. That's just the way it is. And I know it's not going to be traditional in any sense of the word, but I feel like it would be easy to pick that one just based on the fact that I really want to see it. The Holy Mountain intimidates me, and I'm intimidated. That's it. I'm just intimidated by the audacity and the ambition of it and how abstract it's going to be. But I'm keeping things in the casino. I'm going to do the old-fashioned coin flip. I think that's the only way to do it. Instead of me playing favorites, we're going to do the old coin flip. All I've got, I don't even have a quarter. All I've got is a nickel. I've got this fella right here. A nickel. So that's the way we're going to do it. Fucking El Topo's heads, the Holy Mountain's tails. Best of 3. Holy Mountain, 1. It's a 1-1 tie. That one wasn't clean. Heads, El Topo. Alright, so then we'll do El Topo. So maybe I got what I wanted. I don't know, but I'm stoked to see it. The reputation Alejandro Jodorowsky has, I know it's going to be pretty fucked up. It's going to be somewhat of a spiritual odyssey. I've seen a lot of polarizing opinions of it from people who've seen it, people who hail it as a masterpiece, some people who really do not like it. I know there's some controversial stuff in it, to the extent of which I don't know. But that's why we do this. I gotta go watch the film and then I'll come back and talk about it. So at least I know we're gonna have at least one really interesting film to talk about, which will be fun. But I'm sure the Dune documentary is gonna be really fucking cool too. And if I watch El Topo first, I think it's gonna help me enjoy Alejandro Jodorowsky's Dune even more. So now to pick the other 2 films. This week we're gonna do 4. Like I said, 5 is a little bit much. I think 4 is a good number. It's my favorite. I love doing this. I don't know why, because it's exciting. You never know what you're gonna get. Hopefully we get something cool to talk about. If we don't let me down. Algorithm or whatever you are, don't let me down. On the count of 1, 2, 3, go. That's the way I like to do it. 1, 2, 3. In the name of the Scorsese, the Kubrick, and the Holy Tarkovsky. Go. Okay, we could do that. I actually put this on a list of stuff to watch because the streaming service that has this film, I canceled it because it's way too expensive, as most streaming services are nowadays. And I've only got a couple days left, so I guess now I got to get on it. And one from a young Canadian filmmaker, one of our own, that I've always heard really good things about. Mommy by Xavier Dolan. Really, I've never seen one of his films, and I think he's around my age, which is often depressing when you see other people your age conquering their medium of whatever it is. It just is. You're just like, fuck, I'll never be able to do that now. Like when you watch people younger than you in the Olympics, it's just, fuck me. Mommy by Xavier Dolan from 2014. 138 minutes. I really didn't realize it was that long. I thought it was like an hour and a half. Loving people doesn't save them. Good tagline. A peculiar neighbor offers hope to a recent widow who is struggling to raise a teenager who is unpredictable and sometimes violent. Fuck, bring on the melodrama. Bring on the French-Canadian melodrama. I'm in. Again, I can't say much about it because I'm really not too familiar, but I know that it is a critical darling. And here in Canada, at the time this film came out, it did really well. Critics, I'm sure they were fucking ramming the theaters full in Quebec, and I've always heard really good things. And now we've got one more. The 4th pick, come on. I really don't know what I would want to pick if I had a choice. I think that's why I do this. Leave it up to the algorithm. I don't want to pick what I watch. 1, 2, Great Dictator. I've never seen a talkie Chaplin film. I love all the silent comedies. I've never seen it talking. I feel like that would be the place to start. 3, Charlotta. And I'm not going to do the whole cinephile prayer again. The Kino bro prayer, but just going to cross the fingers we get something good. Go. Dude, this is another one that I got to watch it before that streaming service runs out. I'm not saying that they have everything, but it's a fucking weird coincidence, man. It's a fucking weird coincidence because I wrote both of these films down to watch by like the end of the week. And now I got to do them. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Funny name for a film.
The title card comes up for Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. You know, like at the beginning, they do everything. It comes up, Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Now, she's in the cinema, she goes, what a stupid name for a film. I was thinking, but you paid to see it.
If you're an old Ricky Gervais Show XFM listener, you will get that reference. And if you are, I'm glad you're fucking here. Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, directed by Ang Lee of Life of Pi and Brokeback Mountain fame. From the year 2000, a timeless story of strength, secrets, and 2 warriors who would never surrender. 2 warriors in pursuit of a stolen sword and a notorious fugitive are led to an impetuous, physically skilled, teenage nobleman's daughter who is at a crossroads in her life. Often regarded as one of the classics and I guess you would call it a cult classic favorite of the 2000s decade. One that I'm kind of surprised at this point I've never seen because at the time it was out, it was like on the tip of everybody's tongue. So probably one I should knock off my list. Incredibly popular. Some early Michelle Yeoh and Chow Yun-fat, which is a great handle, great fucking name. And yeah, let's rattle them off the top of my head. Goldfish Brain, in action, go. We got El Topo by Alejandro Jodorowsky. Frank Pavich's documentary on Jodorowsky's Dune. Mommy by Xavier Dolan. And Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, funny name for a film, by Ang Lee. So there you have it. There's the 4-pack for episode 5. I'm loving doing these. I'm going to keep doing them until I get bored, which hopefully is never. Love talking about great films. If you are here to listen to me talk about great films, then that's fucking awesome. If you want to watch along, it makes it even more fun to be in on the discussion and know what's going on. And if you've already seen it, then that's awesome. You don't have to do homework like I do. So there you go. A thumbs up if you liked the video. Apparently that helps. Subscribe to this channel, Watchlist Roulette, if you want to see more of this. Couple weeks from now, I'll be doing some Criterion Collection videos because chances are there's going to be a flash sale, 24-hour sale that they do, and I'm probably going to get in on that. And a lot of other film-related videos. So just stick around if you like this stuff and you like looking at this weird old mug, then welcome aboard. And the letterboxd username there is Nick Koss. You can follow me if you want. I'll follow you back. I'm very, very, very active. I'm on letterboxd 24/7, unfortunately. But otherwise, no one to hold them. Again, I'm doing the old Kenny Rogers closing line. No one to hold them, no one to fold them. At the casino of cinema, I guess is what we'll say. Thanks for coming, and I'll see you later.